You can set up your very own self-hosted Ghost website with total control over your data, no WordPress clutter, and no platform lock-in, and I'm going to show you how, step by step, even if you never used a server before. We'll start by spinning up a low-cost virtual private server running Ubuntu. I'm using Cometera, which is the sponsor of this video, but you can follow along using your own hardware at home if you already have it, or with my affiliate link below, which gives you $100 in server credits, earns me a commission, and helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. Then we'll install Docker, deploy the official Ghost container, and connect it to the internet securely using a Cloudflare Tunnel that includes SSL encryption and a blazing fast CDN. By the end, you'll have a fully working website live on the internet. So let's get started. Go ahead and grab your free server credits and meet me in your Cometera dashboard, where we will set up our server by going to My Cloud Servers and then click on Create New Server. And then go ahead and pick the data center that's closest to you. I'm going to choose Los Angeles here. And as far as the operating system is concerned, we're going to choose Ubuntu 24.0 for 64-bit long-term support. And if you do want to self-host this at home, all you have to do is install Ubuntu on your hardware, and then the rest of the tutorial should be just the same. So as far as these server specs are concerned, for the cloud server, choose A for availability. And you can get away with one CPU core, 1 GB of RAM, and 20 GB of disk space for just $4 a month. That's great for testing, but for a production website, I would recommend to bump that up to 3 GB of RAM and 30 GB of disk space. And that's what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. And then moving on down, we want to give our server a password. So go ahead and choose a long, strong password and validate it. And then you can optionally give your server a name. All right, that looks good. We will go ahead and create our server. And this will take just a few minutes to set up, and I'll catch back up with you when that finishes. All right, our server is up and running at this IP address. And what we're going to do is copy that. And if you're on a Mac or Linux, we're going to open up a terminal window. And if you're on Windows, you're going to open up a command prompt. We're going to use the SSH program to log into that server. So SSH root, which is the default user at that IP address. Go ahead and hit enter. First time it's going to ask you, do you want to continue connecting? Go ahead and type yes, hit enter, and then type or paste that password that you just created. And now we're connected to that server in the remote data center. Now, typically at this point in my videos, what I would do next is to set up the VPS by installing updates, creating a new user, preventing root from logging in, setting up a firewall, hardening SSH, all that good stuff. But I recently had the idea to create a script to automate all of that stuff. And this is great for people who just want to dive right into the Ghost setup. For everybody else trying to learn Linux administration, for example, you could go through these steps manually. But I have this script on my GitHub here. It's called setupdocker.sh. And I'm just showing it to you so you know what we're going to be executing, but this will all be automated. We're going to go through this right now. So let's go ahead and do that. What we want to do is use the wget program to pull that script down. And by the way, I do have all of these commands on my blog post, which is linked down below. So you can come in here, copy and paste them, just so you don't have to type them out individually. Okay, so we'll pull that script down onto our server. And now we have that right here. What we want to do is make it executable with a chmod command like this, hit enter. And now we can execute that script with ./setupdocker.sh. Now, like I said, this is everything that this script is going to do for us automatically. First thing we want to do is create a new user. So I'm going to call my user Tony. We'll pick a password for him and confirm that. All right, that user has been created. It has secured SSH. It's updating the system with apt update and apt upgrade. All right, the system's updated and installed some packages here and enabled automatic security updates, configured the firewall, and now it is installing Docker. All right, Docker is installed and setup is complete. Now it does an automatic reboot, so we'll have to log back in, and we could do this to log back in. It helps us out here, so we can do SSH your new username at your IP address, hit enter, type that new password, and now we're logged into our freshly set up server, locked down with our new user. Okay, so with all that out of the way, what we can do next is to get right into setting up Ghost. And just like we pulled down my script from GitHub, we can pull down the Ghost Docker official image from GitHub too. And we're going to put that into the opt Ghost directory. So go ahead and copy that command from my website. And now if we go into the opt Ghost directory, we can see what we just pulled down. Some of the important things in here are inside the Caddy directory, which is our web server. We're going to end up modifying this file here. Also, if we do an ls-la to see all the hidden files, there is this .env example file, which we're going to be modifying too. And then probably the most important file in here is the docker compose.yml file. We're going to look at that in just a second. But before we do any of that, I want to make sure that we have the right owner for this, because right now root owns all of these files. What we're going to do is use the chown command to recursively change that to the current user's ownership. So we can do that. And now if we do an ls again, we can see that Tony is the owner of all these files. And this will just help us down the road with permission issues. Okay, so like I said, let's make a copy of these example files. So the .env file and then also the Caddyfile, like this. And the first file we're going to edit is the .env file, which contains a bunch of environment variables. So we're going to use the nano text editor to edit this. So nano.env, hit enter. And then we're just going to make a few changes in here. So for domain, they have example.com. Pick the domain that you want to work with. I'm going to be using jarlanta.com. Obviously, you have to have this domain registered. And then as far as database settings are concerned, we want to change the database root password and the database password to something, as it says, really long and secure. So go ahead and do that. And by the way, this might be helpful for some of you. I like to use the OpenSSL command to generate long, strong passwords for me. You could open up a new terminal window and do that right on your computer like this. And then that's it for this file. So what we're going to do to save that file is do Control X, hit Y to save it, and then enter. And now we're back on to our terminal session. Next up, let's modify the Caddyfile. So we could do that again with the nano text editor. Give it the path to the Caddyfile. Hit enter, and in here they have this stubbed out for you. What we're going to do is to actually get rid of everything in here. And then back on my website, go ahead and paste in the configuration file that I have for you guys. Let's walk through this. It's a lot easier to understand. So basically, we're going to be running this under our domain name, which we just created that environment variable. It's going to read it from the .env file. We're going to import some logging, traffic analytics, and activity pub, which is optional. Now, down the road in this tutorial, in just a few steps, we're going to be setting up Cloudflare. So we need a reverse proxy to have everything communicate with each other with this X-forwarded proto HTTPS header, which is going to allow us to work with Cloudflare. We're going to enable gzip compression and add some security headers. And then down here at the bottom, what we want to do is to redirect www requests to non-www. Okay, that looks good. We'll do Control X, Y, hit enter. And then finally, let's look at the compose.yml file with the nano text editor. Hit enter. And while we're not making any changes in here, I just want to show you this. This is the fundamentals of Docker. So basically under the services tab here, we have a few containers that are going to be running. One is Caddy, which is our web server. It's going to be listening on these two ports. This is the image version that we're going to pull down eventually when we start up our container. It has some volumes and it's pulling in a lot of the variables that we defined. And then the next one is the Ghost container. Here's the version. Here's our environment file, some of those variables. And then finally, down here we have the database, which is a MySQL database, and then those database credentials that we created earlier. So let's go ahead and get out of here. And honestly, at this point, that's all we have to do to get Ghost running on our server. So what we can do is start up Docker with the docker compose pull command. And what that's going to do is pull down those three images, those three containers that we referenced in the YML file. And that'll just take a few seconds. All right, that looks good. So let's start up those containers with docker compose up -d for daemon, which allows it to run in the background. And that's just going to go ahead and take a few seconds as well. Okay, great. Now those containers are up and running. I always like to confirm that with a docker ps just to see what's going on here. So this is wrapping around to a new line, but we have our Caddy container running, and actually it looks like it's still restarting. So let's do the docker ps again. All right, it looks like I might have an error somewhere. Let's go ahead and investigate. All right, so what we could do is troubleshoot. So I executed the docker logs command and pointed it to the Ghost Caddy container, which that was the name up above. And basically what I'm seeing is there is a syntax error right here in our Caddy file on line 20. So let's go take a look at that. And it's very obvious to me. Do you guys see it too? We're missing a close bracket right here. All right, so that should fix it. We'll do Control X, Y, hit enter. And now to apply those changes, we'll do a docker compose down to stop those containers. And we could do a docker compose up -d again, and that will start right back up. All right, and then finally a docker ps, and that looks much better. So our Caddy container is running. The internal port 80 is mapped to the external port 80. And then we have our two other containers up and running. So we got our Ghost container and our MySQL container as well. So that looks good. So technically at this point, our website is up and running, but we just haven't exposed it to the internet. Now that script that we ran in the beginning from my GitHub page actually closed down all the ports on our server except for a couple. So let's look at that with the UFW firewall command. We'll do sudo UFW status. And right now our only ports open are OpenSSH. Okay, there you go. So port 22 is allowed to come in so we can log in via SSH, but not port 80, which is what Caddy is listening on. So what we want to do is to set up a Cloudflare tunnel, which will completely eliminate the need to open up any firewall ports or do any port forwarding if you're doing this at home. It's very, very cool. So let's go ahead and set that up next. What you're going to need is a free Cloudflare account. So I'm logged into mine right here, and you don't have to have your domain registered with Cloudflare, but you do want to have it managed, the DNS records managed by Cloudflare. Like I said, we're going to be using jarlanta.com. This one is registered with Cloudflare, but you can have your domain registered with Namecheap or GoDaddy, and then just have Cloudflare manage your DNS records. There's a lot of good tutorials on this. We're not going to go into that in this video. I'm just going to show you how to set up the tunnel. So assuming you already have your domain managed by Cloudflare, let's go into your main dashboard, down here to Zero Trust Networks, and then Overview. And what we can do is manage tunnels and then create a new Cloudflared with a D at the end tunnel. So we'll click on Add a Tunnel. And then we can call our tunnel whatever you want. I'm going to call mine Ghost, and then we'll save that. And now at this point, it's detecting the operating system that we're using. I'm on a Mac, but we want to apply this to our remote data center. We don't want to do Docker. You can do Docker. It's just a little bit more complicated for getting the networking set up. But if we run on the system, then it's a whole lot easier to get everything working. So it helps you out a lot here. What you want to do is to just copy a couple commands here. So we'll copy this to install Cloudflare, go back into your terminal window, and we'll paste that in. All right, and then like I said, to run the Cloudflare tunnel as a service on your operating system, we'll go ahead and copy this command. And then what we want to do down here at the very bottom, there's the connectors, and once we execute this command, it's constantly searching for to see if that connector is connected. Once we execute this command, we should see that automatically connect. So we'll hit enter. All right, that is done. And let's look down here for the connection to be applied. And there it is. We are connected. Great. So now we don't have to open any ports on our firewall. We'll go ahead and click on next. And now pick your domain from the drop down. Like I said, we're going to be using Jarlanta. And then for the service, we're actually going to do HTTP here, and then localhost :80. And what this is doing, this is kind of confusing. On our server currently, the Caddy server is running on port 80, as we saw when we did the docker ps command earlier. It's running under localhost :80 under an insecure connection, because we told it to do that in our Caddyfile. And what Cloudflare is going to do is to automatically act as a proxy in front of this web server and issue the SSL certificate and give us a free CDN and give us a whole bunch of security features. And that's the beauty of setting up this tunnel. So point it to the local service running on your server, and then we'll click on complete setup. All right, as you can see, I have a bunch of other tunnels in here. It's a good reason to subscribe to this channel because I have, hint, hint, some more tutorials brewing for the future. We'll get into that later, but for now, I just want to point out that our tunnel is healthy. Going the extra step here, let's go back to our list of domain names, and we're going to look at the DNS records for our domain because there was some DNS records that were created for us. So we'll go into here, DNS records, and now you can see our tunnel pointing to jarlanta.com, which is proxied by Cloudflare, and it's using our Ghost tunnel. Okay, so on that note, our website is officially published and live on the internet. So what I like to do is go into a private window just because I've been in here testing this out before, and we'll go to our domain name, jarlanta.com, hit enter. And here is our Ghost homepage. Now to access the admin panel, we'll go to your domain name /ghost, hit enter, and it's going to take us through the setup wizard. So basically choose a site title, type your name, your email address, and choose a password. All right, we'll hit this button down here to create our account and start publishing. And here is our Ghost admin dashboard. Now, I'm not going to go through a tutorial on how to use Ghost, but I will show you a couple things. Here's how you can create a post. So we'll do that just real quick. Ghost is known for its minimal editor, so we'll do hello world. You don't see a lot of on-screen bloat here, which is kind of confusing for some people in the beginning. Basically, if you want to add something other than text, you just go to a new line, hit the / key, and then you can add whatever you want: images, buttons, call outs, videos, all that good stuff. All right, we'll go back to our dashboard and I'll show you one other thing in here. Go to settings, theme, change theme. And if you don't like the default theme, you do have some free options here that you can easily swap out if you like one of these other ones. Okay, so let's get out of here and go back to our dashboard. And what I'm gonna do is log out of our admin. And then let's just for a second pretend that we forgot our admin password. You can click on this forgot password button, but we haven't set up email yet. And if you ever do forget your admin password, you would be locked out of your Ghost dashboard. So let's set up email. It's going to be a bit of a process. I'm going to do my best to explain it to you, but basically what we have to do is use a third-party service to enable transactional emails so that when we click on that forgot password button, our Ghost server will automatically send us a password reset link. Now, you have a lot of options with what service you want to choose, but in this video today, we're going to be using something called Repo. It gives you up to 300 transactional emails per day. You might have heard of Mailgun or another one of those similar types of services. Yes, you can pay for Repo, but like I said, you don't even need a credit card to sign up, and you can get those free transactional emails up to that limit per day. So let's go ahead and set that up in this tutorial. Just go ahead and create a Repo account and then meet me in your dashboard here. What we'll do is come into the transactional tab and then under email real time. The first time you're in here, it's going to give you the SMTP credentials, like your port, login, and password. And what we're going to do is take these and put those into our .env file that we modified earlier in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's use the nano text editor to open our .env file. And if we come down here a little bit further than we were before, you'll see the SMTP email transactional settings. So what we're going to do is swap out a bunch of these defaults. For the host, we'll choose this. For the port, instead of 465, we do 587. And now because we switched from 465 to 587, this is kind of misleading. We have to change it from secure true to false. And that doesn't mean we're going to be sending out emails insecurely. It just means that the initial connection to the server, the transactional email server, when it's trying to authenticate, is unsecure. But once it makes that first connection, then it securely encrypts the communication. So don't let that mislead you. Auth user, instead of this, we'll grab this, and then password. You get the idea at this point. Copy this and paste. Now, as far as the from option, you can kind of pick whatever you want. Now, because we changed this, we want to add this domain name to our Repo account, and we're going to do that next. So we'll do Control X, Y, hit enter to save those changes. And then before we get out of here, let's go ahead and apply those changes by taking it down our Docker containers, and then we'll bring them up again just like we did before. And then one last step here, like I said, we have to add that domain to our Repo account. So we'll go into settings, senders, domains, IPs, click on the domains tab, and then we'll go ahead and add our domain. All right, so let's click on add a domain. And what this is going to do is automatically detect that we have our domain registered with Cloudflare. So we'll click on continue. And then you can sign in with your Cloudflare account. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can obviously add these DNS records manually too. All right, and then to add all of these DNS records to make our transactional email work, we'll go ahead and click on authorize. All right, and that has finished. It could take up to 48 hours, but let's see what we're working with here. Let's go back to our Ghost login page, and we'll just refresh this page for good measure. And now let's test out that forgot password link. Okay, and that's not immediately working. We're getting an invalid authentication failure. So let's go ahead and make sure those DNS records were actually added to our Cloudflare dashboard. So here's our DNS records. We'll refresh the page here. Okay, so we do see those new DNS records for email, so that looks good. Let's go back into our Repo account to make sure everything looks good here. Okay, I finally got it working. I'm not sure why this was the case. Let me show you that it's actually working. There we go. So let me show you what I did. Basically, I'm not sure why this is the case, but the default password that we saw on this screen under real time was not working for me. So I had to go into settings, SMTP and API, and I generated a new SMTP key here. And then that generated a new password, and I put that back in the env file, and that did the trick for me. So Not sure what happened there. Your mileage may vary, but let's go ahead and confirm that we do receive the password reset emails in my Gmail. There we go. We got 2 of them. There's the password reset link. Looks really good. Click that, and now we can reset our password. I have a bunch more information on my website about Ghost, so check that out. I have the link in the description. If you like self-hosting and you want to learn more about it, I've got a bunch more videos for you to check out on this channel, so subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.